Okay, so hello, Frank. Now, thank you very much for agreeing to have a chat to me today as part of the Legacy of Lace project. I know you've worked in the lace industry for many years now, and I just wondered if you could explain to our viewers what sort of a role you've had in the lace manufacturing industry up to now.
Yes. So I suppose I left school at 16, and since that time, which is 41 years now, I've been working in the textile industry. Um, Probably from the early 80s to about 1992, I would have been working for companies that consumed lace. So I knew it from I suppose, the position of a garment manufacturer who had to use and cut lace and make garments. And in 1993, I joined Guy Birkin, and my role was quality control within the lace finishing division to bridge that gap between customer and manufacturer. So, because I understood the garment side very well, I was employed at the end of the process, if you like, to be like the link between what a garment maker needs and what the lace manufacturer can do. And I would help both sides understand the problems. So that was kind of my role in 1993 when I joined the lace industry.
So was that, what sort of garments were they making then at that time? What was the main market for Birkins?
Okay, so it was for Guy Birkin, it was mainly lingerie, and it was a global business. So in the true sense of the word. So um, we did probably more than 60% export on any one given sales figure, and yeah, we used to sell lace to all over the world.
So
And
which
most of it,
countries were they? Is that America? Was it the?
it was America. Yeah, I went to America to meet customers. We had big business in France. We had large customers in Germany, Hong Kong, Taiwan, China was emerging at the time. But we had business in Scandinavia, Republic of Ireland, everywhere really, in South Africa, Australia.
Yeah.
We had business all over the countries.
So
We
did you
occasionally,
travel to some of these countries then? Did you have to travel? Was that part of
I
your
did,
role?
I did, yes.
Wow.
I went to Sri Lanka, I went to Taiwan and Hong Kong and China. I went to Sweden, um, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. Yeah, I went to the USA, France, Germany, Austria, Italy, Belgium. Yeah, pretty much everywhere, really.
So this was mostly to companies that were actually making garments then, was
Yes.
it?
So sometimes it was of a technical nature. So let's say Playtex were introducing a new lace. You could have gone to Glasgow, which was one of their manufacturing sites, or
Yeah.
you could go to Le Tour du Pan, which is near Lyon in France, which is their other manufacturing site. And what you'd have to do is you'd have to attend a pre-production meeting, and all of the ins and outs, the tolerances on width and pattern repeat, what dyes we'd be able to use, what performance standards we have to hit for colour fastness and shrinkage and things like that, and stretch and recovery. All of these things would have to be discussed because they're very important to the engineering of a lingerie garment.
Right.
So it's
Yes.
very, very involved, very, very, I suppose it's bordering up between art, science, and also engineering.
Yes, I can see
Because it
that.
has to function as well, you see.
So we've got all the different processes. We've got right from, with lace, you've got right from the design side of things to the drafting, to the making, to then the finishing. But your role was in between the finishing and the actual garment manufacturer,
Initially, it
and make
was,
sure
yeah.
it's the right type of lace, making sure they're getting it right.
Yeah, initially it was, but in actual fact, it went right through the process because if there's anything not quite workable for the garment at the end, we have to go back to the beginning.
Right.
So you end up being involved through the whole process. And eventually, Guy Birkin put me in charge of all quality eventually and all research and development.
Right. Well, we were looking this morning. I was looking at some old lace pattern books with one of the artists, and we were wondering if the actual lace design got altered quite a lot after what, because we were looking at the actual lace designs of Amy Atkins, who did a lot of lace designing in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and we wondered if from the design point there's a lot of changes made to the design between that and the lace that's manufactured for the garment. Are changes made from that side, from the end?
They are made several times. Yeah. So when a designer first comes up with a concept, number one, it's probably reviewed internally within the company, because you have to work out if it's going to be saleable. So there'll be some sort of consensus. So Guy Birkin used to have an internal marketing department that would do that kind of work. So they would look at the design and suggest maybe alterations that might make it more saleable,
Right.
or more usable or user friendly to the current trends that they're seeing in the garment world. So yes, there could be several changes to that point, to the point where you make it. Then when you actually do your pilot production, so your pilot production is the first production that goes through. We used to do what we called a new pattern procedure. So for every new pattern, we'd have to develop the costing, the specification, and also all the controls we needed to manufacture it the same every time we came to make it, no matter how many years apart we made them. So,
Right.
if we made a pattern, it might be, we might sell it straight away, but it might be 3 or 4 years before we make it again. So we have to have all the information there, so we can just go and make it again exactly the same way as it was made before. So that process had to be done. And yeah, in that process, if something's not working, if you got your first piece through dyeing and finishing into the end result, and we found a weak place where it was breaking, then yeah, we'd have to go back to the design and alter it.
Right. Yeah, I
Then
mean,
we'd have to alter the draft, then we'd have to remake it, and we'd have to repilot it. Yeah.
so it's very, very complex, like you say. It's between art, science and engineering. I can see that. I mean, my father was talking to me last night. He was telling me about, he was trying to describe about the different types of machines. He was saying that the Thomas Stocks machine were mostly 10-point levers lace machines. I don't know whether you used levers with your work, did you, or were you in the Rachel and Jackaronic era? And he was saying that the factory at Draycott, there were so many machines operating in there that the building used to move, and they used to have a big problem with some of the machines that were 10.5-point, I think, because they were very, very sensitive to the movement in the building.
That's right. Yeah, you could feel, even in the knitted factory, occasionally you'd be walking down the factory and you just feel it go. Because what would happen is the machines are all oscillating at different frequencies, but every so often they'd all move in the same direction at once.
Yeah.
You can feel it. There's a big vibration goes through the floor.
Oh, so when you were working at Birkins, now that was it that at Borrowash when they'd built the new factory there, or were you working across all the sites at Nottingham and Long Eaton?
I was working across all the sites, but I was based in the Nottingham finishing division.
Yeah.
I used to do a lot of work at the dyers, which is textile finishing. I used to do work at Borrowash, and I used to do work at the levers plant in Leopold Street. So yeah, I did work across all the sites, and eventually they closed the Nottingham site, so I've actually moved to Borrowash for the last 2 years I was there.
Right, because you say about the Leopold Street one, we're particularly looking at the area of Erewash, like Long Eaton and Borrowash, and the involvement in the lace industry. What happened down Leopold Street? Was that finishing, or was the lace manufactured there as well?
The lace was manufactured there, so it's an old school building. It went through from Leopold Street to the next street, and it was actually a factory. The windows were big, so you could take them out and put the machines in, because they're 20 tons. So you had to have big tall windows so you could pop them out and bring the machine carcasses. So it was ideal building because they're about 5 meters wide, maybe 6 meters, some of them. So they're
Right.
very, very long, very, very heavy chunks of iron. And yeah, so the Leopold Street building was a manufacturer for the levers lathe.
Right. So you say you actually got involved in the industry when you were 16. Did you do some training before that? How did you actually decide to get involved with textiles right from the beginning?
My father was involved with textiles, my grandfather was involved in textiles, and my great-grandfather was in textiles. So I suppose it was kind of inevitable. My father used to manage a garment manufacturer in the lace market when I was young, and I would go in and help in the cutting room when I was a child. By child labour, exploitation. I ought to do him for that. But yeah, so and he actually, I didn't know what I wanted to do at 16, and he actually told me he worked for a company called Knott's Manufacturing at the time, which is the I don't know if you've heard of the name Janogly. We do a lot of I suppose philanthropic work around Nottingham now.
Right.
They have schools and colleges, but they used to own Knott's Manufacturing, which was a textile business, and he worked for them at that time. And he told me of a job that was going in the laboratories at a fabric manufacturer.
Right.
So I got a job in the QC lab, and I liked it, and I got stuck into it, and eventually went to college and got a degree, and went to work for Perkins and found myself a laceman.
Wow. So with you, I think I don't know if my father had retired at that point when you started with Birkin.
I worked with Barry.
You did.
He was my boss. I had a couple of bosses over me. He was the big boss.
Right. So were you there when there was the royal visits to the factory?
No, I just missed those. So I think Princess Diana was the last one. And I started in 93. I think she visited in 92.
So at that point, there was the Jackaronic machines that would have been producing most of the lace, were they, at that point?
They were, yeah. They were the big earners at the time, yeah.
Yeah.
But we just started introducing at the time Textronic. So when I joined, the first few patterns of Textronic were coming through, and that became the next big thing.
Well, explain to us what Textronic is, because I don't really know anything about Textronic.
I can show you, I think.
Can.
Just bear with me a second. I haven't got any jack cards. Just bear with me a second.
That's okay.
Okay, so this is a Jackaronic lace.
Right. Yes, I can see it there.
Yeah, so the reason why this is a Jackaronic lace is because these areas, that and that, are the net.
Yes.
But you can see there's clearly two different types of nets involved.
Yeah.
So there's a hexagonal, and there's what we call crackle mesh, which is more open holes.
Right. Yeah.
So to make a pattern with multiple types of net in it, you need a jacquard bar on a knitting machine. So that was how Jackaronic was formed, and it was principally to get more patterning in, to make it more like levers. So up until that point, the knitted laces, which were much cheaper to make, would only make principally with one type of net.
Oh, I didn't realise that.
Yeah, so the Jackaronic really opened up the different types of net in different areas of the design on the knitting machine. Of course, levers machines could already do this.
Yes.
Then
so it's sort of replicating the way that levers lace can create different types of net, but in a faster, cheaper way.
That's correct. This is Textronic. So this is a jacquard machine. So you can clearly see that there are more than one types of net. You can see a big
Yeah.
hole in the mesh and a smaller one there.
Yeah.
And there's design also in the mesh. You can see little spots and so on.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that is a jacquard machine. But here, you can see it, and you can see it's almost like a lump, this bit part here.
Yeah.
It's
Where
very
it's
thick.
raised.
Yeah, it's very raised. It's 3D, it's thick. And what that is what they call a full plate that makes that. And what a full plate does is it holds those yarns down the needle so they don't knit, and they float across the front. And you can
Right.
make shapes across the front, and it makes a much thicker, much heavier lace.
Does it sort of replicate the weave in handmade lace?
Yes, well, all of these things really are to replicate levers. Levers replicated handmade lace.
Yeah. Right.
So, by default, yeah. So, but the interesting thing is, you've got knitting machines that make designs like this, which is
Wow.
very, very simple and only on one net. These are
Yeah.
called Rochelle laces, and these were the first types of knitting machine. Yeah.
Right.
And then
Yes.
you've got Jackaronic, which makes different types of mesh. They were the big second generation of machine. Then you got Textronic, which were Jackaronic machines, but also with a full plate in to do 3-dimensional. All of these machines can only knit one type of lace.
Right.
Lever's machine could make all of those.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So levers machines were incredible, really, weren't they, at the time?
Yeah, it was really they were created without a computer, without a.
Yeah. And what do you think the next step will be with lace
It's already
machines?
here. The latest machines don't limit the amount of movement a bar can make. So normally, and the older type of machines, they can go backwards and forwards to fill in shapes, about 8-9 needle spaces like that.
Right.
The modern machines, you can move them a much wider field, so you've got much more patterning capability, and consequently as well, they've been able to make the bars much thinner, so they've been able to add more pattern bars. So I think now a fully developed levers machine would have about 120 pattern bars.
Right.
So that's the amount of patterning capability.
Mm-hmm.
The Jackaronics we were just talking about, they were 78 bars. The Textronics we were talking about, I think the biggest they got up to was 66. But the latest generation of knitting machines now get up to 96 bars.
Wow.
So you can see it's getting closer and closer to levers all the time.
Yes. And where are these machines developed? Are they still developed in Germany as the Jackaronic machines, or?
Yes. So Karl Mayer developed them. There's also a company which is owned by the German company called Nippon Mayer, who operate in China and the Far East and Japan. And there's also some Chinese copies now.
Right. So whereabouts is the lace produced now, Frank? Because I mean, with this project, I've been really looking at the companies that have sadly disappeared, but I am aware that there's pockets of firms that are still operating, and
yes,
parts of the lace thread are.
Yeah, there's 3. I think there's somewhere at Ruddington as well. Make braid and so on. That make an old-fashioned machine called a barman. But there's Cluny Lace, which are in Ilkeston.
Yeah.
They have, I think, about 12 or 13 levers machines still.
Yes, that's.
So they're still going. There's
Yeah.
Trim Lace, who are between Breaston and Draycote, and they stopped making lace. They converted their machines to make braiding and trims, and some of them in fabric. But now they're starting to make lace again.
Oh.
So they've just brought one machine back, and I think they're planning their second.
Well, that's encouraging then, isn't it? If it's
It is. It's very funny because I looked at a project a while ago that I didn't end up doing, and I can dye it and finish it now cheaper in England than I can in Thailand.
Interesting, because that's why a lot of the businesses folded, because a lot of the processes went over to the Far East, didn't they?
Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah.
So do you feel that partly it might be a sign that some of it might come back to this country?
I don't know. It's going to be very difficult to bring it back. It's, in a way, it's good news for me for the next 10 years till I retire.
Right.
It means I'll get a little bit of business. The problem is the amount that would need it to be invested, and the amount of complications there are with making and investing in new businesses in the UK.
Right.
If you've got something new and sexy, it's not a problem. So if you wanted to do something like Snapchat that never makes a profit, but people want to invest in it, it's great. But you've mentioned textiles, people don't seem to want to invest.
Right. So you
Not
say that you're still working and you've got some time to go till your retirement. So if you continued with this kind of work that you were working with Birkins, because Birkins actually folded, what year did they finish Birkins? Was that 90?
I left in 2003.
Right.
And I think they probably folded the following year or by 2005.
Yeah. So you've continued on your own, have you, since then?
Yeah. So after Birkins, I got a job with a lingerie company. So I worked for them for 6.5 years. And like all textile businesses in the UK, they fell on hard times as well. There were never great times, to be fair, while I worked for them, but we made a lot of turnover. We didn't make a lot of profit. And I worked for them also on the technical side. But when that started to go downhill, I felt I would try on my own. So what I've done is, and I thought about it, and I thought, I'm not going to make it if I just do technical work, because people don't always want to pay. They always want help and advice, but they can't always afford to pay for it. So I thought I'm going to do some sales as well. So what I do is I do consultancy work for companies.
Yeah.
So I work for a company in Sri Lanka called Thomas Kershaw, who do components for bras. And I have been working for the past 9 years for the clothing brand Superdry.
Right.
But I recently stopped that, and I'm now working for a motorcycle clothing brand called Engine Hawk. So I'm doing motorcycle clothing as well.
Oh, that's interesting.
So
no lace on that though, I guess.
Not at the moment. I'm doing that. You never know. They're going to do a ladies' wear collection next year, so you never know. And then on the lace side, I sell. This is one of my hangers. Look, that's my my old company logo. So I sell lace, which is made in China, and is mainly used for outerwear. So myself and my business partner, we do a lot of the technical work. We do some design work, but we also source what's available out there. And we also do some production in Europe, but mostly it's in China. Right. So we do big orders for big retailers. I don't cover the UK anymore. I was brought on to do Marks and Spencer, but it was very difficult, found it very hard to make it pay. So now I look after their American market. So we've got 2 big customers at the moment. One's called Express and one's called White House Black Market. And they have masses of stores in America. Very, very big orders if you're lucky.
Is that women's wear then, or?
It is, yeah. It's primarily outerwear. I mean, we'll do lace for anything, but it's mostly coarser gauge than what Birkin used to have. And it's mostly used for dresses. Yeah. Dresses, skirts, and tops.
And there are some design companies that are still carrying on, aren't they, in this area too, that are still successful?
I use them because I do a little bit of. I've just got my new pattern here actually. This is my new pattern. I've actually just got this knitted now. I'm actually just arranging the freight
Oh yeah.
to the UK. So
So
that's where
is this Textronic or is this
this is made on a Jackaronic machine.
Jackaronic?
Yeah.
Okay,
And
that's
this,
lovely.
yeah, and that's going to be sold to a UK brand called David Nieper, who do clothing probably for the older lady.
Right.
And yeah, so I'm having that made at the moment for them.
So do you have a hand in the lace design yourself, or do you get people to design for you?
It's designed by someone you know, actually, that one.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So yeah, so that's yeah, I use a lady called Petra to do my lace designing, and occasionally I will also buy one from one of there's 2 firms that I know still operating in Long Eaton. I think there's more than that, but there's 2 firms that do the designing and the drafting. So they do one of them, Watkins and Neil Thorpe Drafting did the draft for this pattern that I've just made.
Right.
They're based at the bottom of College Street in Long Eaton.
Yes, I met Neil. He came to my last project, and it's great to hear how successful his business is as well.
Yeah, so I use them, and then I help with the design, but I don't draw myself. So
Right.
I pay people to do it, which is mostly Petra, and then I do all the technical work. I choose the yarns, decide how it's going to be knitted, and then look after the finishing. The dyeing and finishing is done locally in England. I've got somebody who cuts the lace, who scallops it. I've got someone who examines and reels it and packs it, and I do all the technical work between me and the customer.
Well, it's really interesting to hear that there's so many different processes involved after the lace has been made, and so thank you for talking about your involvement in that and how your career has developed. Have you got any highlights in your career that you want to share with us, or what's been your happiest moments of working in the textile industry?
I suppose my 10 years at Perkins was brilliant, and I thought I got a job for life, and I was hoping so. But yeah, we did lots of very, very good work, and I suppose the highlights for me were the big collections we used to do for Marks and Spencer.
Right.
We used to do maybe 9 or 10 different laces, and they'd all be on the same theme, and they'd all go together on the garment. So we'd make the shoulder strap, the top lace, the undercut, the one that did the wing, the one that would do the pants, the one that would do the negligee, the one that would edge the slip, and the underskirt. You know, and we did everything.
I can remember the collections because as a young teenager, I used to get very embarrassed when we went shopping because my father had to go and look at the underwear in Marks and Spencer's. But I can remember the whole collections then because it was very big, wasn't it? I think it was a real boom time, wasn't it, for lingerie?
Madonna used to wear lingerie as outerwear, and suddenly everything took off.
Yeah.
And it became the trend. Her and what's that designer? I don't know, French designer. Can't remember his name, but anyway, they did a lot of work together. Oh, Jean-Paul Gaultier.
You're right. Yes.
Yeah, they did a lot of work together, and you know, lace became the in thing at that time. So yeah, it was a real boom time.
Have you done work for the high-end designers at any point in your career?
Yes, yeah, we have. We've done work for Chantal Thomas when I was at Birkins, La Perla, all these type of people. In the United States, we did work for Anna Sui, and we actually got a product onto Game of Thrones, would you believe?
Oh my goodness, tell me about that.
Yeah, I think it's in series 7 or 8, but it's the Dragon Queen. It was a very special fabric, and it went into a cave.
Oh wow.
So
I'm going to have to look out for that.
Yeah, I'll send you a photo.
Yeah.
So that was a highlight. Yeah.
Yeah. So what sort of fabric was it then? Did you have to sort of help develop it? Or?
No, it was a friend of mine who developed it, and one of my business partners, and it was a printed fur. So it's a faux fur that was printed, a certain technique we've been using on lace. And we decided to see what it would like printed on some fur. It was his idea.
Yeah.
They came and saw it at one of the stands and bought it.
Oh, it'd be good to see a picture of that then, wouldn't it? So
Yeah.
please send me one.
I'll send you one.
Thank you. We're almost running out of time now, but a big thank you for chatting to me, and I hope you'll keep in touch with our Legacy of Lace project. We're going to be having the 5 artists. We're going to be working at the museum in May, and then we're going to have a public event in July, and then an exhibition in August of our work. So I hope you'll be able to come along.
I will be coming along, yeah.
One of these events. So, but good luck with everything. You've got quite a few more years of working in textiles before your retirement. So I hope it all goes well. Hope it all picks
just
up.
Under 10, but I'm not counting.
Oh, okay.
Well, say hi to your dad for me.
I will do. Thank you. Thanks very much then,
Okay.
Frank. Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.